Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys are all having a great day so far. So today I actually have a very exciting build for you guys, which is kind of unique. It's a very huge, modern, luxurious like beach home in Tartosa because I really like this lot. Despite it being such like a weird shape because it is 40 by 20, I felt like it was just like the perfect lot to build a very huge, luxurious beach house in, because it kind of like reminds me of like a beach getaway. And I was kind of building this in preparation for the new kits that were coming out, which are the Riviera retreat kit and the Cosy Bistro kit. And I'm really excited for you guys to see how I actually incorporate those objects into the build, especially with the Cosy Bistro kit, because that's kind of like more focused on like commercial lots, but I was still able to include some of the few objects they had into this build. And obviously because they were kits, I wasn't gonna like, you know, focus the entire build on just those kits. Obviously like this build has 99% of it is made up of like the existing kits that we already have. I just included some of the stuff that I thought was like kind of necessary and appropriate from those kits, because obviously if you guys aren't like willing to or not really interested in purchasing those kits, you don't have to worry about losing too many assets in this build, because there's pretty much like not that much that I really had to utilize, especially with like, you know, like how the build really is. Like I'm not really focusing on like creating something that was specifically made for those kits. But yeah, overall I'm still really happy with how it turned out, and I was really happy with the objects that actually came in the kit. And if you guys saw a few days ago, I believe we had some sort of like leak with those kits as well, and I also made a video on that, and I was reviewing those objects as well. Objects that I actually reviewed did actually come up in the kit, so it was kind of just like cool to see beforehand like what it kind of looked like, and I was able to like kind of like get an idea of what I wanted to use some of the objects in the build. So for example, there's like this like rock with like the waterfalls coming out of it, and I obviously wanted to use that as much as I could within this build as well. So you guys will see that later on in the video, how I'm able to utilize this like fountain rock thing in one of the corners of the build, which I thought looked so nice and luxurious, and I feel like it really did fit in with the environment that it was in. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about these two kits in the comment section below, and while you guys are down there, consider liking and subscribing, as it really does help me with providing more content for you guys, as well as helping with like the channel's growth. And I really do appreciate the current support that I already have so far. I really do appreciate you guys, so thank you very much. But yeah, moving back to the build, we've pretty much finished like the entire exterior of the entire build as we were talking about the kits. But as you guys can see, like we have some few interesting floor plan layouts with like some rooms that can only be accessed like through like the balcony area, as well as like some bits that poke in and out, as well as like a catwalk on the second floor to access like one part of the wing of the home, which I thought was like kind of cool and unique and interesting. And surprisingly, I managed to incorporate 3 different swimming pools into this build, which I thought looked quite cool and interesting, and it really fit with like that luxurious vibe that I was going for. And they're kind of like all on 3 different levels, so I feel like that really added to like the interesting and dynamicness of this build. And the one on the foundation that is like closer to the beach is kind of like a curved swimming pool, which you guys will see later on. I actually utilized some spa day column pieces, which kind of like helped me like create like a nice curved shape, looked unique and interesting in comparison to like the boxy shapes that we have going throughout like the entire build. And obviously because we're building in Tartosa, where there's like these like few rocks here and there, especially on this sandy lot, I wanted to utilize the same rocks that came with the My First Wedding Stories pack, because I wanted to utilize the same rocks that came with the actual like world, so that it kind of like blended in and like looked realistic. And I managed to do that by utilizing the same rock but in different shapes and sizes throughout like the entire build, just so it didn't look a bit too repetitive and boring, and it kind of like added to like the realism of having like a bunch of like random rocks here and there with like different shapes and sizes. And as we can see how some of the rooms in this build does look quite boxy and stuff, I kind of like worked around that by pushing some of the tiles back in some parts of the rooms, just to like leave the walls exposed and like the flooring, just to make it a bit more interesting and dynamic, because I feel like the shadows and the lighting that hits into those gaps and stuff make it look a bit more interesting and stuff. And it was kind of like a way of adding some balconies here and there throughout like the entire build. And as we can see so far, we're just utilizing a few natural wood tones, and that is kind of like the main color scheme throughout this entire build. It's kind of like this like very nice like beige, any sort of like brown tone, to be honest, like throughout like the entire build. I really wanted like a very nice like neutral wood texture that like flows throughout like the entire build. And I really love the base game one, but I sadly did not end up utilizing that, and instead I kind of used one that came from Island Living, because it just looked a lot more nicer, and it really did like blend in a lot nicer with like the plain white walls that I had going throughout like the entire build. Because although this did really help break apart like the difference between like the white plain wall as well as like the colored wall, I feel like I really did like the island living one a lot more in this scenario, because I was trying to go for like a very nice like white plain simple theme, and this wood texture had a bit too much detailing on it, so I just kind of like resorted to the island living one, which was a bit more like simpler. And I also utilized these panelings, these wooden panelings on some of the walls on the exterior, just to like add some more detailing and dynamicness to the build. And as you guys saw a few seconds ago, we're actually utilizing some white framed windows and doors rather than like black framed ones, which I did try a few seconds ago, but I just didn't like the way it looked because it was standing out a bit too much when it wasn't really matching with the theme that I was going for. So instead I just kind of like resorted to these nice simple ones, which kind of like blend in with like the white walls that we have going throughout like the entire build as well. And I also placed like not foundations but like some flooring on top of the roofing of the entire build, because I wanted to place freezes on top of the roofing. So the way I was able to do that was by utilizing some flooring on top of the roofs, and then I put some like freeze around like the entire area, which was like a nice plain white one, which I feel like worked really nicely. And obviously you can't put the freeze on top of the roofing if you don't have like a proper flooring on it, I believe, which is kind of like the way I worked around it, to be honest. And I also utilized some very nice eco lifestyle flooring that I pretty much utilized for the exterior as well as on the interior, as well as like some tiles here and there for the bathrooms and stuff. But yeah, I just went around, added some nice foliage here and there throughout like the entire build, obviously just to like make it look a bit more like lived in and stuff, utilizing some very like Iceland vibes sort of like plants and greenery. So yeah, I just like went around, picked some specific stuff that I thought looked like it was appropriate for an island theme or like a beach, and I kind of just like scattered them around like the entire build, especially like this very nice like green shrub sort of thing that came with island living, which came in very handy. And I just kind of like skipped over it a little bit because it was just taking such a long time. And here I am just creating the sort of like curved swimming pool sort of situation for the foundation swimming pool area, which I really liked the way it looked in the end. In the beginning I wasn't actually really sure if I liked it because it was kind of like standing out a little bit, so instead I kind of like changed its color to a bit more like neutral tone that kind of like matched the home a little bit more. But in the end, like I was really happy with how it looked, and I kind of just like kept it in the end. So, and yeah, I obviously like changed the swimming pool color to the one that came with, I believe, Get Together. That is definitely my favorite color for the swimming pools because it just looks very nice and like very like it has like a very nice blue color, if that makes sense. And I'm just going around adding some even more plants apparently to the entire exterior of this build, because you could just like add as many as you want into this build, to be honest. But obviously I wanted to take into consideration like the lag and stuff like that, so I did obviously like maintain like a few, you know, didn't want to add too much, but I didn't want to like leave it too bare either. So I just went around and added some trees and shrubs around the entire area, as well as like leveling some of them up by using the number 9 key, just so like there's like a bit more like dynamicness. And so it's not like all on like the base floor, there's also some like bits that are coming out throughout the rocks as well, which I feel like adds to like the realism of the entire build. And I utilized some like, I don't know what it is, if it's like a tree top or if it's like a shrub, but I utilized some of those on top of some of like the rocks, which I feel like added to like the uniqueness. And there's some areas of the build that I wasn't able to reach normally, so instead I utilized a tool mod, which came in very handy with this build. But yeah, moving on to the interior, we're starting off with the kitchen, which is like a very nice light open theme. And obviously I had to use the island living counters that came with island living because it was just like the best one, to be honest, for this build, because I feel like it matched really well. Like I don't know, I really like the way the countertop was like white and like the bottom part was like this like nice beige color. I feel like it really matched well with like the overall color scheme that I was going for with the entire build. And we used a nice simple plain fridge and like a nice stove top and a very simple bin that I believe also came from island living, which I feel like obviously worked really well with the color and stuff. And obviously once again I'm utilizing those shelvings, which I find really useful and helpful. I don't know, I just find it like so nice to use in all of my builds, to be honest. And it's kind of just like a nice way to like clutter up and like a way to like fill up some like wall space, to be honest, by utilizing those shelvings. And we kind of have like a small living space, so you guys can see we have a stairs that kind of like is kind of like in the middle of the room, which initially wasn't what I really wanted, but we really had such limited space to work with and I didn't want to like mess around with the exterior, so I left it as it was. And I feel like it's kind of like a nice change being able to like fill up a small space rather than like, you know, always working with like huge extravagant spaces. So like it was kind of like fun to like work with a small space. And we kind of like finished up the living room area, and I kind of used these like small little like individual seats that is closer towards like the box shaped windows area. And I kind of like the way they look, because they kind of look like coconuts. I'm not sure why, but yeah, they kind of like gave me like a nice beachy vibe, so I just wanted to use that. And especially because we have like a lot of like beach references and obviously like a lot of palm trees throughout the entire exterior, I felt like it was kind of necessary to use some furniture pieces that made sense with the environment that it was in. And this is one of the bedrooms that we are seeing on the first floor. I felt like it was kind of cool to have like a window feature that looked into one of the swimming pools, which is, I'm not sure if I really liked it, but in the end I kind of like stuck with it, and I really liked the way it looked because it was just something interesting to add. And the reason why I didn't show the other bedroom was because it didn't really have something unique like this bedroom did. So yeah, I wanted to show you guys what I was doing with some of these like bedrooms and stuff, and pretty much all of them kind of just like look the same, but like in different styles and shapes and colors. So yeah, just by like showing you guys like a few of them here and there is kind of just like more than enough in my opinion. And I've honestly been like using this dresser a lot recently, and I don't know why, I just feel like it really works and fits with like the island theme that I was trying to like go for. I don't know, I just like the textures on it, to be honest. And I kind of just like added some like random clutter here and there onto the build just to like add to like the liveliness of it. And I really like the open door, like the sliding door thingies that we have in the game. I feel like that is very nice, and it works really well for like these like beach homes and stuff. And this is one of the bedrooms that we have on the second floor, and we actually have a main bathroom on the first floor, but the two bedrooms on the second floor each have like their own ensuite. So I was kind of thinking of gameplay when building that, so I didn't want your Sims to like go downstairs if they were both upstairs, you know, like I would rather them have their own ensuite, especially because we had the space. I was just like, why not just like utilize that and make it into like a nice ensuite rather than making a very huge extravagant bedroom, which I feel like is not really that realistic in a beach home anyway. I feel like it's more like smaller and like more luxurious in comparison to having so much space, if that makes sense, especially because like you're next to the beach. It's not going to be that cheap to like, you know, have a huge home with like a lot of space for each of the bedrooms, if that makes sense. And I used a lot of these like pendant wall lighting, which I really liked the way it looked. And I believe they came with the Desert Lux kit, which I believe was free when it first came out, and I'm not sure about now, but I believe it was free when it first came out. And I really do like the way it looks because I just feel like it works really well with like the theme that I was going for in this build. As I was mentioning, I'm going with like these very nice wood tones and like detailings, and I feel like that lighting fixture really had that sort of detail that I was going for. And I really like the planter that I used in this build as well. And I believe I do go back to using the other dresser that I had in the other bedrooms because I just really liked the way it looked overall. And I tried to minimize the amount of TVs I was placing throughout the entire build because I didn't want that to be the main focus of the entertainment part of this build, because I wanted it to be like more of like a vacation lot where like you actually like explore and utilize the outside exterior activities rather than actually like staying indoors and using the TV. So I'm just kind of like adding some like real life logic into the game as well. And I went with like this very nice luxurious bathroom with like these like custom counter units for like the sink area, as well as like a very nice bathtub that like looks out to this like huge window which has a very nice scenic view. And I felt like a lot of the bedrooms in this build like were quite like plain and white, so instead the way I kind of like worked around that was by adding some like nice accent walls here and there by utilizing the same island living wallpaper that I was utilizing for the exterior for the interior as well. And this is one of the final bedrooms that we have on the second floor, I believe. And I went with a more open and airy looking bed for this bedroom, as it has like this like open mesh thingy for like the bed frame, which I felt like was kind of interesting, and it does kind of give me like island vibes in my opinion. And I wanted to make this room a bit more interesting by making it a darker shade of brown, because we've been going with like a lot of like these like whites and like beiges and like light browns and stuff. So I went with like a more darker theme in this bedroom, which I felt like added to like the interestingness of this build overall. And yeah, I just added some like nice decor here and there, just like adding some nice planters and stuff, and just utilizing some more interesting clutter pieces here and there. And I believe that specific object came from the book nook kit, the coffee and the book in like a tray. I don't know, I've been using that a lot recently, and I really just like the way it looks because it's kind of just like a really realistic object in my opinion, because it kind of just like reminds me of an object that you'll see from like a custom content creator rather than like The Sims. But yeah, as you guys can see so far, like, I'm just utilizing the same dresser that I've been utilizing throughout like the entire build so far, because I just really do like the way it looks, and it just matches with the overall furniture and aesthetic of the home in general. And I use this very nice mirror that I use throughout like all of my builds as well. Not even just this one, I use it in every single build because it's just like the most natural and normal looking one in my opinion. Like, if we had like a plain rectangular mirror, I probably would have utilized that. And this is also another one of the en-suites of the final bathroom, and I utilized a sink that actually came with island living, and I really do like the way it looked because it kind of just like, the base of the sink actually reminds me of like a palm tree for some reason. I'm not sure why, because it kind of just like looks a bit, it kind of just has like an odd shape, so it kind of just like reminds me of like a palm tree. And I just like went around like the entire bedroom just like utilizing and adding a bunch of different like clutter items, and obviously like a bunch of different rugs, which I was honestly struggling with this build as well. As you guys can see so far, I was just like really struggling to find rugs that would work really well, because I didn't want it to be too tacky, I didn't want it to be too simple, I just wanted something like in between, you know. So I just went with like this one that kind of had like these like nice bright red, browns and oranges and yellows, and I added some like nice like wall decors and features here and there. And then here is when I actually started to like utilize the actual packs that came out, because obviously, as I mentioned before, I was building this like before the packs came out, so I was able to utilize some of the objects now finally. And this was one of the actual like rock features, and I didn't know that these had to specifically be placed next to like swimming pools, because they do like clip on, they don't like, they're not like free-handable, but I still wanted to utilize it as like a nice waterfall effect for like one part of the home. And I also use these like very nice sun lounges that came with the new kit, which looks really nice, to be honest, in my opinion. I really do like the way it looks, as well as like the design on it, as well as like the colors that it comes in. It does look pretty good as well as like the float as well. The pool float looks really nice and simple. At first, as I mentioned before, like I wasn't really sure what it was, but in the end, like I do really like the way it looks. It kind of just looks like a very fancy pool float in my opinion. And from the bistro kit, we're actually utilizing the bar as well as like the bar like seating area, which I really like the way it looked. Although it wasn't really like very modern and it kind of just like looked a bit more traditional, I still really liked the way it looked and I wanted to utilize it. And because it was kind of like tucked under the catwalk, I didn't really mind it too much, to be honest. And I really do like the towel rack thingy that came in the pack as well. I feel like it was kind of cool. It was like a really unique feature that I feel like could be used next to pool sides as well. Also, that lemonade table is also usable, so once you use it, it actually fills up, and I believe it kind of just like makes lemonade or something like that. But yeah, it's kind of just like cool that we have like, you know, like usable stuff in like a kit. And I just went around the entire build and added some like extra clutter details, as well as like curtains and stuff here and there, just to like add to like the more realism and stuff like that to this build. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and if you did like the video, make sure to consider leaving a like and subscribing. And I also have a bunch more videos on my channel that I highly suggest that you guys can check out. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video.